Hey guys, it's the Abstractionist. It's time for a November wrap up. So basically, it's just a wrap up as I'm doing it. It's just kind of reflections on the month, decks and stuff that I bought, and perspectives and blah blah blah. So yeah, this month was very deck heavy. Um, yeah, it was pretty deck heavy. So let's get into it. I thought I had bought the Oncoming Tarot in November, but that was like the end of October, because then I got the Luminal like Spirits Oracle. But yeah, those were October. The ones in November, you can see all of them. They're on the channel. They're generally just like 10-ish minutes of me talking about the deck and kind of like my impressions and stuff like that and how I plan to use them and whatnot. But yeah, so I don't know why it's so greasy. We have the Pamela Coleman Smith's RWS Tarot deck. So I got this because I'm not opposed to RWS decks or Rider-Smith decks or Rider-Waite-Smith decks. I'm not opposed to those. It's the most basic deck. It's not like the oldest, but of the three main systems, which would be Marseille, Thoth, and then like Rider-Waite-Smith. But it is the most common one. So I kind of feel like if you want to learn tarot or get acquainted with tarot, you're most likely being introduced to some derivative of like this system. So yeah, so I think it's personally a good investment to just get at least one deck just to see how it works. Not everyone jives with the system, or like, not everyone likes the system, not everyone jives with it, but I do think it's like the baseline for most people. So yeah, there's that. We have the Woodland Wardens next. I do plan on doing a reading really soon with this, but I do think the Uncommon Tarot or the Starman Tarot or Mystical Healing are probably going to be first. But yeah, I got this not wholly on a whim, but kind of on a whim, because I am not the big on like animal decks or plant decks. So the fact that I got a plant and animal deck, that's kind of like kind of blows my mind. But there's something about it that I'm interested in exploring, and it seems like it's very fitting for this time of year. So yeah, there's that. We have Tarot of Mystical Moments. So this also has an Oracle deck. I don't know if I'm going to purchase that. I'm not the biggest person sold with Oracle decks with a lot of keywords or phrases at the bottom. They had to be pretty unique phrases for me to like want to buy them. But I was drawn to the artwork of this. It's kind of like whimsical, so I like it. I think this deck has shown me to be good for like quicker messages from the perspective of someone in the past that may be related to you or something like that, like your great uncle. Like, what kind of life was he living? That's how I get it. So there's that. Next, we have the Mystical Healing reading cards. Another on the whim kind of purchase because, yeah, like I was not checking for this deck when I got it, but it's been pretty like on point because I pull it for me generally, but like it's been on point. So yeah, I will be using it even more. I can't say it's a long-term kind of deck, but yeah, I really enjoy it. So like I said, all of these are going to be like either links or you can just go on the channel, like they're there. Next is the Starman Tarot, and I got this because this is one of the few it's really the only deck out of all of these that I, minus Uncommon Tarot, but like I said, that's from October. It's like really one of the few decks that I've waited like a minute to get, and like now that I got it, I'm like, thank you. I waited a while, a really long, like a year-ish for this. Most of tarot, to be honest, is like impulse buys. But like this one, definitely I waited, and my perspectives on it in the video is kind of like dream work-ish. So I'm excited to use this in the future. And lastly, we have the Box of Emotions. So this is one of, it's not an oracle deck, but it's a deck that goes over various emotions and the history of them. Again, I did a little like mini review of it, so yeah, there's that. But these are the decks that I got. I'm excited to use this one. I think I may get a second one for the actual channels, and then use one for myself as I process my own emotions, right? Like tarot readers process their own shit because they have their own stuff that they're going through. So I'm like intrigued as to what I will find when I open up my own skeleton closet. It's like I'm looking at stuff in there, and some of it's kind of rough. But yeah, so I got quite a few decks this month, in the last like month and a half, 2 months span, and I'm kind of happy about that because I feel like as I get more into decks, I find that my actual style and what I want to do with them comes out. I think when you first start trying to do tarot reading, you tend to purchase a lot of decks that are like popular or aesthetically pleasing and stuff like that. But when you get into like real, I want to say work with it, like you're pulling cards, you're processing like generational issues and patternings, ancestral work, you're doing like tarot challenges, so you're like pulling cards daily or weekly, and you're kind of consulting the cards, you kind of start to crave actual relationships with them. Like most people low-key are probably like animists when it comes to their tarot decks, as in like decks have personalities and different aspects come out with different readings, or you know, stuff like that. Like the relationships that you have with the decks, like some decks are like very humorous, some decks are very cutting, and it's just kind of interesting how we have all these decks and they really do, like, they're just different aspects, and it's like the relationship you have with it, that you as a reader are also clocking that this object as you're reading it is like giving you, feeding you something in a different way. It's like aspects of spirit, like different aspects of spirit come through different decks for me. Hence why certain decks are like better for certain readings. And you know, I know people argue that like you could really work with one deck. I do think that's cool, but I also think that like we're all aspects of the divine, and so we all may display emotions, like the full range of emotions, the big consciousness of beingness, but we're expressing it all differently. Like all the different plants, all the different animals, all the different blah blah blah, we're all expressing it differently, and so why wouldn't tarot decks be any different, right? So that's kind of how I see it, and that's my story that I'm sticking to pay to like get out of like using one deck and spending money, getting into spending money for decks. Now, on a book aspect, I actually did start reading Astrology for the Soul. So basically this is book club. It's gonna basically be every month all year because there's 12 north nodes that we have to go through. I am starting with my north node, which is in Sag, and so I started reading it. I like, before I bought this book, I had stood in Barnes and Noble and like read a bunch of it, so like it's like I remember most of what's been going on. I've been breezing through it, but I think I should like not take it for granted that I read this kind of before and like really sit down and have notes so I can like talk to you guys as opposed to just like winging it when I finally do get to the review. But yeah, I've been liking it so far. It feels more, what I can say about the North Node is like it feels more accurate as to who you are on a like real soul level. Like there's some aspect of my North Node that like feels more like me. Like it's not that my real sun sign is Sag, because I don't really click with Sag as a sun sign. I don't see myself as a sun sign. If anything, people call me an Aquarius, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? I'm insulted. People think I hate Aquariuses, but it's just like, they're very rare in my life. I don't know. I feel like I never meet anyone who's an Aquarius. Like, they're always like every other sign but that. Like, I don't know. I've never really met Aquariuses. I think most of my grandma and my dad are like Aquarius moons, so like that's like the closest. And dealing with that is like, oh god. As a Leo moon, I'm like, I can't deal with this. Like, yeah, like I feel like I don't meet Aquarius sun signs that often. I meet a lot of Geminis and a lot of Libras for some reason now. But like I never really, watch I end up with an Aquarius, because that's gonna be the one sign. That's the one sign I never see out in the wild. But back to the North Node, it just feels like an ad. Like it just feels like what is it? What is the French word for reason for being? Like that's what it feels like. It feels really accurate. Like I'm not protesting any aspect of my North Node. Like I'm very comfortable fully actualizing that that energy, whereas like you may feel uncomfortable fully actualizing or stepping into your moon sign or even your sun sign. And then like certain aspects of your chart are harder to deal with. I feel like the North Node is pretty easy to accept, and it fits. Like it's like the honesty that comes from the North Node is easier to digest. That's how I can describe it. It's just it's easier to digest. And especially I feel like going through my Saturn return, it's easier to digest because it's literally a point where I'm aligning to it. And so it's like less fighting for it, like fighting against it, or it's like being seen fully for who you are and wanting to go fully into that space of being what you really are and not having any airs about it and not having any like mental obstacles about who you're going to be and what you're going to live up to. It's just like being it. It's like very much not thinking about it so much. It's just being it, you know? And I like that. So I think I'm going to really slow down for this section that I'm reading, Astrology for the Soul, which is North Node and Sag, and really digest what it means. Because the book itself, if you're really thinking about getting it, if you're looking at it just from a North Node, just from your North Node, you're only looking at like maybe like 30 pages. Yeah, you're only looking at like 30-ish pages of book. But I think that fully getting into an awareness of your sign and then going and processing that. And I think it would be better for people to know what their North Node is when connecting with other people, because I kind of feel like it's almost like you'll be able to understand how to meet maybe the like highest actualized version of someone and like operate from that, as opposed to like the other parts of your chart where like it's more contentious. It seems like if you understood the North Node, even like when you talk about like education, like educating children, like how children like learn different ways. It's almost like the North Node is kind of like the method that someone needs to be taught in order to get certain information, you know? So, yeah, there's that. So, definitely go for it as far as books. Outside of that, I'm still planning my new year. My new year basically started since my North Node was in Sag. I basically start when the sun entered Sag. And I was like, yeah. And then of course I got sick and I was like, I was like, but yeah, so I'm in 2023 technically, spiritually. I have an event. Like, I feel like I need to plan my calendar, and I'm becoming less scared of like sharing that I do tarot and stuff like that, like in my like real world life. That's offline, and even like online spaces that like you guys would know about because they're like ultra private, like my private like Facebook, my private like Instagram, spaces where like only the closest people would know. Yeah, it's becoming like easier to kind of share that information and not care about being judged, which is something that a lot of people, I don't know, like I kind of feel like people struggle with a lot, and I'm getting a lot more comfortable with being judged because like I'm living my life like how I want to on my terms, and that's something that some people never achieve, like no matter how old they are. So yeah, it feels kind of good. On a sad note, like I started November off with someone like leaving my life. Like they left like the end of October, like literally like the last day, like Scorpio season, and I was just like, okay, like you're not Mr. Right. And it's just like it's always like Scorpio-ish season, and then I was going through my IG, and it was like I came across, because I save a lot of stuff on my Instagram. I save a lot of like memes and pages and stuff like that, so if I want to travel back to it, I can travel back. But like, yeah, I saw like something I had saved and was like the people who leave between like October, like late October and like early-ish November are not meant to go with you in the next part of your life. And I'm like, this is exactly what happened in this time frame. And so rebuilding my life from that, like it's not even like it's so devastating. I did cry, and like that was the most cathartic cry, and I feel like ever since I cried and released that person, it was almost like that energy of interacting with that person was like stuck in my like my lower chakras. Like I know what that's I kind of feel like I know what that's about. They were very helpful. Let's do reflections. Late October, early November. They were very helpful in healing a lot of like root, sacral, and even like I'll go as far as like solar plexus issues. Like it brought up a lot of those issues, like abandonment wounds and mother wounds. And like I'm really grateful. Like just like the same person, it's not the same person that started me on my spiritual journey, but it's like somebody else. And I personally appreciate when people come into my life and when they leave, and I kind of feel it like it's significant on both sides of when they come in and when they leave, because I have a lot of like karma to clear out when it comes to relationships, and I'm going to be doing a video on the Enter Red Room about some of that, particularly with my Saturn sign. And yeah, so I basically entered the month of November losing someone who was important to me, but part of my lessons also is evaluating value when it comes to how much am I a priority in other people's lives versus where they are in my life, and it tends to be very uneven in that sense. So learning about that sort of pattern really helps. So basically, like, someone left my life in starting in November, and it's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. But every time someone leaves, like, and it's always like some like random, there's always something random that that other person gets mad about, and then they leave. But every time that happens, my life upgrades significantly, and I'm getting to the point where, like, when doors are shutting, like, I'm not gonna open them back up anymore. So yeah, like, learning those cycles, it's kind of interesting. Outside of that, I have a renewed focus. I've been purging, I've been cleaning. Since I got sick, I had to clean up a little bit, and dust, and make sure that I wasn't gonna suffer anymore because of that. And getting more into alignment for 2023 and the things that I want to do, and making sure that I have like secure things. So certain things that I'm working on now for 2023, I'll mention them like later if I decide, if it goes the way that I'm thinking it's gonna go. I'll basically mention them, and just getting more in alignment and more comfortable with stating what I want and where I'm going and what I naturally am drawn to, and not running from what I'm naturally drawn to in terms of my career and what I like, and knowing what kind of person I am in terms of work. So yeah. Alright, this is done because this is longer, way longer than I thought it was gonna be. Way longer. Hopefully if you watch to the end, I appreciate you watching to the end. And yeah, I'll talk to you later. Peace.